When we talk about phacomatoses, what do they mean? They are nothing but neurocutaneous syndromes. As the name suggests, they affect mainly the central nervous system, the skin, and in a lot of cases, the eye. And these are all having a common ectodermal origin. But there are some diseases where the skin manifestations are nil or almost not there, or nil or very minimal. Like, for example, the VHL. We'll see that subsequently. In these disorders, we get disseminated hematomas affecting several other systems of the body. And what do we mean by this word phacomatoses? So phaco in Greek means a lens, oma is a tumor, and osis is a condition. So it is a tumorous condition of the lens, okay? But this word phacoma was first coined by a Dutch ophthalmologist by the name of Van der Hoef, and he actually saw patients of some of the phacomatosis patients with eye manifestations, and so he thought that these are only tumors of the eye. So he coined this word phacoma, and phacomatosis developed from that. Now, what is the importance of imaging in phacomatosis? Remember that these are common diseases, so one should know about them, and they have very characteristic imaging findings. In fact, the diagnosis can be in many instances made purely on the basis of imaging findings, and you don't need anything more for confirmation. Once a case has been diagnosed, then the patient's first degree relatives should be screened, because these are inherited genetic disorders. And for the patient, one should offer regular clinical and imaging follow-up, and also genetic testing and counseling should be offered to the patients and first-degree relatives. The common phacomatoses that you will see in practice are neurofibromatosis type 1, type 2, tuberous sclerosis, Sturge-Weber syndrome, and von Hippel-Lindau syndrome or von Lippel-Lindau syndrome. These are the list of uncommon phacomatoses which you will uncommonly see in practice. In fact, if you see something which is uncommon, you'll have to open your books or go on the net and search. So these are uncommon. Now let us see some examples. This is a 13-year-old girl who presented with headache. She had no other significant medical history, and her birth history was normal. She was absolutely a normal child, except for that mild headache. But the parents were concerned, and so she was brought for imaging. This is her MRI, which was done in the year October 1996. And on these, at that time, in those days, instead of FLAIR, proton density sequence was performed, which is as good as FLAIR. What was seen was some bright areas on these proton density weighted imaging, images in the left cerebral peduncle, in the right globus pallidus, also minimally on the left side, and also in the left cerebellar, middle cerebellar peduncle in the pons. On the T2 weighted images, the other lesions were also quite well seen on the T2 weighted images, as you can see here and here. These were the contrast images. Actually, I don't have the plain T1 axials because these were clicked images. But here, this lesion in the right globus pallidus was bright even on the T1 weighted images. So this was not contrast enhancing and bright signal areas, and even on the T2 in the globi pallidi. So you see there was not much change. Everything remained unchanged. There was neither progression nor regression. On the contrast, again, there was no evidence of contrast enhancement. She was asked to come for further follow-up, but because the patient was otherwise asymptomatic, she followed up with us only 6 years later in September 2003. So these were the T1 weighted axial images of that time, which did not show anything. Nothing obvious was seen on these. On the T2, all other lesions had disappeared except for the globi pallidi, which showed very subtle residual signal abnormality. Same thing was seen on the FLAIR, subtle. Everything had disappeared. So what was the diagnosis? These are areas of myelin vacuolization in neurofibromatosis type 1. In fact, right after the first scan, which was done in 96, this diagnosis was offered, and when the patient was screened, it was found that she had few café au lait spots on her body, but there was no other family history